On now to the girls 1 mile for the 7th graders. As we continue to progress, we will have the boys 7th graders after this, the 8th graders, and then move to the high school sections. And plenty of 2 miles coming on the track. So settle in, buckle up, and stick with us here on Runner Space. Plenty more action to come. But on the track now, the girls 1 mile, 7th graders.
And Trevor, I have a question for you. So if you had a seventh, you were a coach of a 7th grader here, probably not a lot of races under your belt. What advice would you give them in a mile like this? Are you starting out hot? Are you just trying to focus on the finish? What would your approach be from a coach's perspective?
You know, I think that it kind of, I'll give the coach's answer in my limited coaching experience, but having worked with other coaches, but the coach's answer is it depends on the athlete, right? And I think that the psychology of it is so important early on to just make sure they're having a good time out there. And yes, certainly pushing themselves, but, you know, every race is a rep. And so if it's somebody that it can't, as much as we talk about these results and being able to see them on Athletic Live and look at past results, you're probably not comparing very, deep results. So I think really what it's about is having your athlete run within themselves, but also just feeling it out. If they fall apart, well, now that's a data point, right? If they run really well, but then kick really hard at the end and negative split or whatever the case may be, hey, maybe we work on pacing a little bit. So this is kind of a good test run to get another rep under the belt and see where you are as an athlete.
Love it, absolutely.
I'll throw it right back at you. Ben. Though, what would you say for the youngsters here? What's your opinion?
I think for me, we're seeing a lot of athletes run with their teammates, and I think it's likely that a lot of them probably do their daily training runs with their teammates and probably friends. So I think my advice would try to run together. A lot of these, I remember at least in my middle school, high school days, I'd want to beat my teammates so bad, and I'd just run way ahead of them, or I was competing like them, like they were complete opponents. But looking back, I think I wish I tried to run with them more, push each other, and it's because it's going to lead to a faster time in the end.
Well, and I think there's an aspect of being comfortable when you look to your left or right and you see somebody that you've trained with all the time or the same color jersey. I mean, you realize, hey, I can run this pace, or this is somewhere I can be. So yeah, it's really just about figuring out the pacing and getting these reps under the belt for sure in these races. But I'm like I said, I'm so impressed to see athletes when we start to look at later results and having seen them run for years going back to middle school. So this is where that happens. You get those reps and get the experience and just be ready to go when you hit your high school career.
Yeah, and that's something I'm so impressed with on the West Coast. I'm originally from around Chicago area, and when I came to the West Coast, Oregon, California, I'm shocked to see, middle schoolers or even earlier on the track running timed races. It's super cool, how early people out here and teams really support the sport.
Coming through here, that first lap. And, part of it, too, is just good training weather, of course, and being able to train in the sunshine most of the year and run outdoors. And it can be challenges across the country in other locations, certainly. As we see our leader here, Melissa Parra of Marco Forster Middle School. Roadrunners coming down from San Juan Capistrano, just a little bit north. Running 1-2 right now. Lena Turk, also of Marco Forster, running second with 6:68 on her bib. But Melissa Parra holding strong out in front.
Parra's also run a 2 mile earlier this year. She ran a 12:29. So now going down to the 1 mile. Let's see. She's got the speed on the shorter distance.
Coming through halfway here 2:47 on the clock. Lana Turk just about a second and change behind, but she has company in the form of Reese Klassen of Aviara Oaks Middle School. It was a clean 90-second lap for Melissa Parra out in front, and that's the other thing I'm always so impressed by is the confidence, the moves. You know, in some of the other states and different cross-country meets, we see sometimes 7th or 8th graders racing against high schoolers even, and so it's incredible to me, not just the fast times, but being able to kind of square up against the older athletes and run confidently. I mean, Melissa Parra looking really, really solid here, running within herself, well out in front of the field.
Yeah, you got it. Absolutely. That confidence, you know, I feel like it's just instilled in some kids. You could just see that they have that confidence, that aura, if you will, around them to just compete at any level, no matter who they're against. You know, it seems like Melissa Parra has got that for sure.
Well, and you want to talk about the coaching angles or strategy or things like that. I think what your job is early on, certainly get some miles in, maybe work on some mechanics, you know, the mindset, all of that, but also maybe you run some time trials. Maybe you start to get athletes to say, hey, this is what it feels like, and, you know, it won't be something unknown or scary when you hit lap 3 and you're feeling a certain way. I think that's a big part of it as well, because it is such a blank slate or an unknown challenge when you haven't run that many races. But Melissa Parra still hanging on strong as she takes the bell. 4:19.9, 132 on her previous lap. Lana Turk right there. Reese Klassen still with Emmy Turk of Marco Forster. You see the black over red running fourth.
Let's see if these Marco Forster teammates are going to join here. Got a lot of them in the mix. Melissa, Reese, or Melissa, Lana, and Emmy.
This is Reese Klassen making a move for Aviara Oaks Middle School there. She had been in third, now trying to push up and press on our leader, Melissa Parra. Look at Reese Klassen for the Falcons of Aviara Oaks out of Carlsbad. Look at the gap, 5-6 meters. Parra still looking strong, trying to find a kick. Klassen having to work hard to close the gap, coming around the bend for the final time.
Look at this great competition here. Parra doing a phenomenal job holding on. You can see her really pushing, going to the arms here on the final 100 meters.
This is Melissa Parra, who's going to take the victory here for Marco Forster, coming down from San Juan Capistrano, making the most of the trip. What a kick. Keep an eye on that clock as she will come in and take victory. Melissa Parra ahead of Reese Klassen, who had a great finish as well. 121 on the final lap for Melissa Parra. How about that finish? 5:41.4 for her. 5:45 for Reese Klassen. Just 7th graders running these great times. Klassen with a great final 400 as well. 1:22.
Yeah, those two were just levels ahead of everyone else on that last lap. Nearly or over 10 seconds faster than the rest of the field. The race up until that point was relatively steady at around 1:30 a lap, and then they just absolutely took off. Parra and Klassen with both great finishes here. Shout out to the Turk family. Looks like Lana and Emmy possibly sisters or family members going head-to-head, just 3 seconds apart.
Yeah, Marco Forster with a great trio there. Parra, Turk, and Turk. Finishing first, third, and fourth. As we will have our final finishers. Confirmation of the results there on screen. As we finish up our third race of the afternoon and get ready for the boys 1 mile as 7th graders. So, Ben, let me ask you this now, since we're throwing questions back and forth with a little bit of time here. What would you say, I don't know if accurate is the right word, how accurately do you think this really represents? I mean, how much can we tell about how good these teams are, you know, when we see the depth in this 2 mile race, translating that back to the cross-country course? We've got a few years of data, I guess, even more going back those decades, but what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, it's the closest race you could possibly have to cross country with it. You know, it being a 2 mile, it's, relatively close to the 3-mile or 5K distance, depending on the state for most of these high schools. I think it definitely gives you a good idea of fitness. A lot of these athletes, they're gonna show their talent and their fitness level on the track, but there's something about a cross-country course, especially one that you run over and over and over again within a conference or within a state, that some teams just know better than others. I remember in my running days at Illinois, our state meet was called, the course was called Detweiler, and it was a super fast course, and we had run it one time earlier in the season, and some teams just had that course's number. They knew where to take off, they knew where to clump up as a team, and that's part of the interesting strategy of cross country. I think the course really, really matters. So that aspect of it is still unknown, even after all the stats are laid out here with Hoka Postals.
That's really the fun of cross country. I mean, I agree, is that it can be rain or shine and mud and whatever the case may be as the weather starts to get colder. We just saw obviously some conference championships at the collegiate level this weekend and some great competitions there. But you're absolutely right. Every course is kind of its own beast, and it throws more variables in. Let's put it that way. I like to point that out. There's more variables than there are on the track. Certainly, we can have some weather on the track and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's still a flat 400-meter oval, and with cross country, that it just there's a level of grit, of teamwork, and all those things that come into play with so many variables that makes it so impressive when you do get that team win.
Yeah, and you talk about variables, even with Hoka Postals, all these teams are running times from, we talked about this long availability to run Hoka Postals from early fall to almost the winter. And so you could have a team that races their time trial in the very beginning of the window, and this is